Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to do a little bit of drilling and tapping in the lathe. Now you've already done a little bit of drilling. You've done a center drill, okay, at the beginning of this process. But we're going to show you how to do the remaining part of this, and that is this right here, the drill and tap for the 1032. Now, very simply, we're going to take care of doing this in a very similar fashion that we did when we did this for this end. So we're going to start out with a center drill, and then we're going to go ahead and calculate this drill diameter, which is going to be at number 21, taking a look at our drill chart. And then, of course, we don't really have a depth here, but it does look like this line goes down to about this line, which is about 1/2 inch. So what we're going to do is we're going to do plenty. We're going to go a little extra. We have nothing here that affects anything. So we're going to go ahead and drill that 3/4 of an inch deep, and I'll show you how to hit that. All right, so we're going to set this off to the side and go ahead and grab our center drill here and start the process. So we're going to wind this up, tighten that up roughly, tighten it up with the chuck key so we can get that to stay right where we want it. And then we're going to roll this up somewhat close here, and we're going to lock this in. You've already seen a lot of this. We're going to give ourselves a little lube on this, and then we're going to turn it on and roll over and do a center drill. Okay. Now that the center drill is done right there, we're going to take this out and install our number 21 drill. Number 21, and again, that is the tap drill size for a 1032. We're going to tighten that up and make sure that's good. Now, something else that it's a little bit difficult to see, but there's a scale here on the spindle, and the top is millimeter, the bottom is inches. And the best thing to do is to run this out to about 1 inch. Okay, you'll see the 1 inch mark right up against this surface here. Lock that in place. What we're going to do is just kind of bump this up. I like using a smacking method. You can just kind of hit it a little bit and watch the tip of your drill get up the edge of it right into that center drill right there. Then we can go ahead and lock it in. Loosen this up. We can back it off some. We don't want to turn it on with a tool engaged, but we wanted to make sure it's there, and then we're going to back off so we can go ahead and start drilling. Now, with that at 1 inch, then we know how far we have to go because it's graduated. You have marks along the way, and then you have obviously taller marks at the 1/4 and 1/2, 3/4, and then of course the marks indicating the inch. So we're going to use those to our advantage on the bottom scale here for the inch. We're going to fire this drill up. We're going to lube our drill up, and we're going to start. You want to be careful, especially with small drill bits. It's easy to overdo it. We're going to back it out of here. Make sure we knock some of those extra chips off. We do have chip brushes here. We're going to make sure we lube that up. It's important to get those chips to move and also not to degrade our cutting surface. Watching my scale down here on the edge, I've just hit a 1/2 of an inch. Okay. The deeper I get, the more chips actually get inside of these flutes here. So it's even more important to back it out and get rid of those chips. If not, it will load up and it will tear something up quickly. So notice I'm not going as far before I'm pulling it back out. Again, that's by design. Get those chips out of the way. Get my lube right on the tip. Don't need a ton, just need enough to keep that lubricated. And also when I'm rolling back in the hole, I want to watch where I left off, because what I don't want to do is slam that drill bit in the bottom of the hole. It's really easy to do because you can't see where it is. So I hit 3/4 of an inch there. Probably went a hair bit further. Like I said, I wasn't terribly worried about it because I don't have anything behind this that's going to affect that. So I'm just going to go ahead and roll with that. Now, the other thing to remember is when you're winding this back out, if you go too far, it will literally knock your chuck out of there. You don't want to do that. So wind it back out to around the 1 inch or hair bit less, and then use that lock to move it around. Okay, so now that I have my hole in there, I pull this up, set this off to the side, and what I'm going to do is I am going to use a tool. First of all is my tap here, okay, and I am going to load this up in my tap handle, and I'm going to tighten this up here. Now I'm using a a spiral point tap, and the purpose, or the good news with this is I don't have to actually stop and break the chip. But no matter what we do, we want to make sure that we're tapping straight, because even though we drill a straight hole, doesn't necessarily mean we can tap a straight hole unless we pay attention to what we're doing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and set up my dead center here. It could be the live center as well if you want. Matter of fact, I'm not going to worry about it, but I'm going to bring this out, okay, and we're going to use these together. I'm going to stick this in the hole here. I'm going to bring this up somewhat close. I definitely don't want to slam it, so I can go ahead and put a little, I can wind this up close. And it's good not to lock this, because then you can't put too much pressure on it. But with this out of the way, I'm going to go ahead and put some pressure on my tailstock forward. Okay, I may want to get the rest of my tools out of the way here so I don't bang my hands. And I'm holding a little bit of pressure. It keeps this the center engaged in the back socket of my tap, and by doing that, it makes it straight with the spindle. Okay, and that allows me to make sure that I'm tapping a straight hole. So I'm going to continue to do this and roll on. You can see the spindle moving just a little bit here. If for some reason it's taking a little bit more torque, it's not a big deal. You just put it in a lower gear in the transmission, and that lower gear will make it more difficult to turn, and therefore keeping it from spinning. So we're just going to keep moving in here. Again, this is a spiral point tap specifically designed to shove the chip forward, so I don't have to back up with this particular tap. If I had a taper tap, I would have to do that. But I'm going to keep rolling in here on my current path. In order to get this deep, I'm going to be very mindful of how much torque I'm actually putting on my hands in order to achieve the torque to tap. If it gets a little great, I'm going to want to back off, because that means that I'm getting near the end, or I'm getting some major chip loading in front of my tap. And I can feel it's starting to increase a little bit. So again, I'm trying to be very cautious. Especially in aluminum, you can get into trouble really fast. Yeah, I feel like that's about as much torque as I want to put on this little tap in this hole. And so I'm going to go ahead and back this out. I'm going to be gentle when I break that chip, and simply go ahead and back it out. Now I want to support this, because I don't want this thing to have a whole lot of side loading on it when I'm bringing it out, because that can open things up and or just set yourself up for some disaster there. So I'm going to support this to some degree, and I'm going to try to spin it as straight as I can bringing it out. Obviously having the tailstock there makes it a little difficult. You can do it, but not always recommended. All right, so now that I have that, I have a tapped hole here. All right, you can verify about how far you went in, and I have gone just over 5/8 in there. You can measure it before or after. Again, I know I drilled a good bit deeper so that I could easily make that 1/2 inch mark right there without a problem. Sometimes that's the best way to do it. Having a hole that's controlled depth is really a pain, because you have to drill it to the right depth and then run a tap like this in there, and then run a bottoming tap in there to get your full thread. But drilling it a little deeper, it definitely helps, especially with a spiral point tap here, because it shoves chips forward, so all the chips will be loading up in the end of the hole. And so once you start feeling that tension from those chips there, you know you have more than enough thread in the hole. All right, so that's it for tapping, drilling, and tapping.